Stage 1 is honestly the gaslighting phase. You still look relatively normal, maybe giving a little dad bod, maybe a little thick, and you feel okay-ish. But biologically, your body's already in full crisis management mode. Like a retail worker on Black Friday. Understaffed, overwhelmed, and absolutely not paid enough for this. Your walk changes first. Steps get shorter, slower, stance gets wider. You tell yourself you're just out of shape. Now, that's your skeleton looking at the situation and basically going,
Alright, I'm gonna need backup.
once you hit a certain weight threshold, your walking mechanics change because your joints and your muscles are basically trying to keep you upright without snapping something. But the real chaos starts in your spine. Stage 1, fat absolutely loves hanging out in your belly. It's like the VIP section. Normally, your spine has this nice S-curve setup. It's got that natural lordotic curve in your lower back that looks kind of sexy on those anatomy posters. Well, that curve is about to get absolutely violated. See, when there's a lot of weight in the abdomen, your center of gravity moves forward. Your spine looks at this situation and goes, well, I can't let my guy fall forward flat on their face, so I guess I'll just bend backwards. And because bodies love chain reactions, your upper back rounds forward a bit to compensate. So now the posture situation is giving a full human question mark. Your skeleton is literally asking, why are we doing this? Meanwhile, your back muscles, especially the erector spinae muscles, which run along your spine, are working overtime just to keep you upright. At this point, they're more overworked than the Starbucks barista who has to make a drink with 20 modifications. The discs between your vertebrae, which are the little cushiony boys, are supposed to keep your bones from grinding against each other, but with all this extra weight and the weird curved spine situation, they're getting squished unevenly. Some parts are compressed, while other parts are getting stretched, bulging out like a squished Oreo where the cream's coming out of the sides. That's why chronic back pain becomes super common when you're obese. It's not just getting older or sleeping weird, and your breathing becomes expensive. The extra belly weight pushes your diaphragm up, shrinking lung space. You can still breathe, of course, but your body's running on survival mode now, and everything feels slightly harder. Just existing costs more energy, like your operating system hogging all the RAM just to run Microsoft Word. And the wildest part, you probably don't even realize this is happening yet. You're out here thinking, yeah, I just need to hit the gym and I'll be okay. Meanwhile, your skeleton is filing workplace harassment complaints with HR, your joints are drafting their resignation letters, and your spine is actively suing you for damages. And you're just vibing, completely unaware that your biological infrastructure is having a full-on mental breakdown behind the scenes. Stage 2 is where your body stops sending polite little hints and starts full-on screaming. Kinda like when the Duolingo owl starts aggressively reminding you about the lesson you swore you would do. Your silhouette changes, your walk changes, and the warning signals aren't just beeping anymore. They're blaring like a car alarm at 3 a.m. that nobody goes outside to turn off. Like, you know how in those nature documentaries, penguins waddle around all cute and shit? Yeah, that's basically you now. The waddle happens because your thighs literally cannot pass by each other anymore. Imagine trying to walk normally with 2 Thanksgiving turkeys stuck between your legs. That's your situation. Your legs are still trying to move in a normal pattern, but there's just too much matter in the way. Your hip abductors, which are the muscles at the side of your hips, are the unsung heroes here. Normally, they just stabilize casually, but now they're grinding every step like unpaid interns trying to impress the boss. Walking basically becomes a full-on workout just to make it to the fridge. It's giving Nicki Minaj picking a fight with a reporter mid-staircase to catch her breath after walking up some steps. If you tried walking normally, your pelvis would drop and you'd risk face planting, so your body improvises. You lean side to side over which leg is on the ground, turning yourself into a human pendulum. It reduces leverage on the hip joint just enough to keep things functioning. It's inefficient, tiring, and not exactly graceful, but it works. Barely. And just when you thought the spine and hips were enough, the ankles join the rebellion. The problem isn't that the ankles can't handle the weight, they actually can, but every extra pound increases pressure on each foot every time you take a step. But yeah, if you're carrying a lot of extra weight, your feet are basically working overtime. The real nightmare is what happens to your arches. The posterior tibial tendon, your main arch stabilizer, gets constantly overloaded. And when it's overloaded, it can weaken, stretch, and eventually stop supporting the arch properly. Doctors literally call this posterior tibial tendon insufficiency, which sounds fancy, but translates to your arch support system has straight up rage quit. Your foot arch collapses and your feet go full pancake mode. Collapsed arches cannot absorb shock properly. They roll inward, which makes your ankles wobble, alignment go sideways, and your knees cave inward. Suddenly your legs aren't legs anymore. They're parentheses, and Grammarly cannot fix you. Shoes? Forget it. Normal shoes are designed for feet that have arches. So when you go to a regular store to shop, you'll find insoles that aren't rigid or wide enough to support heavier feet. The problem is, super soft flat footwear may feel good, but can actually worsen alignment issues if your arches aren't supported. Your feet are basically in an abusive relationship with your footwear, and not even Birkenstocks can save you. And then there's your knees. Knees are already mid-tier joints. They're basically just two bones stacked with some cartilage and a prayer holding them together. Now you're asking them to handle forces they're never designed for. The cartilage in your knees starts getting compressed like it's in a hydraulic press YouTube video. That smooth surface that's supposed to let your bones glide past each other becomes rough and damaged, basically turning into sandpaper. Your femur and tibia are becoming best friends in the worst way possible. Your body tries to stabilize this mess by growing extra bone around the joint called osteophytes. It's like putting racing stripes on a car that's already on fire. Welcome to morbid obesity stage 3. At this point, your anatomy stops struggling and starts straight up malfunctioning like your laptop just before a Zoom interview. Your walk's clearly compromised, but the real twist is that your own soft tissue starts sabotaging your movement. You've become your own worst enemy. Your body straight up said, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. The main character of stage 3 is the panicculus, that dense, heavy apron of skin and fat hanging from your lower belly. It moves like a fluid-filled wrecking ball with every step. When you move, it swings slightly out of sync with your legs, creating momentum that destabilizes you with every step. Basically, it's like walking with a sloshing water cooler strapped to your waist. Doctors sometimes grade this belly apron by how far it hangs. Grade 1, it's noticeable but manageable. A little belly situation. Grade 2, it covers the pubic area. Grade 3, it covers the genitals and extends towards the upper thigh, which is usually the point where mobility starts becoming a major problem. Basically, the point where your life starts resembling an episode of My 600 Pound Life. There's another problem. A larger apron can literally block your leg from swinging forward. You physically cannot step through it, so you step around it, swinging your leg outward in a wide arc. Doctors call this circumduction. Realistically, it's like permanently walking with a heavy suitcase wedged between your thighs. This leads to the shuffle, an energy-saving strategy. Walking now burns about 50 to 60% more energy than normal. To survive, your body cuts corners like a broke college student meal prepping ramen. Your foot barely leaves the ground, minimizing how much of your center of mass bounces up and down. This saves energy, but means you literally cannot step over things anymore. A small speed bump, stairs, and curbs, they all feel like Mount Everest. People looking at you probably think you're lazy though. And then, the skin situation, it gets nasty. Deep folds create warm, moist, low airflow zones, basically a tropical resort for bacteria to throw an all-inclusive rave. This is called intertrigo, aka skin rot. The constant friction and trapped sweat cause the skin barrier to dissolve like wet toilet paper. It smells worse than a Subway sandwich left at a gym locker for 3 weeks. Meanwhile, the pressure in your abdomen gets so high that it blocks blood from returning to your heart properly. Blood pools in your legs like a sad abandoned swimming pool. The blood just sits there, leaking iron into the skin, leaving reddish-brown rust stains everywhere. Circulation slows, pressure builds, and unfortunately, there's no plumber on Yelp who can fix this. The heart is working overtime like an unpaid intern during tax season. And spoiler alert, it is about to quit. Stage 4, you're now super obese. Time to open ChatGPT and ask, do I need to book 2 seats for myself on the airplane? At this point, your body's backup systems are fried. We're looking at tissue that's actively working against your survival. Your mobility's basically gone. You need someone to help you just to get in the car. The star villain here is something called massive localized lymphedema. Think of it as a fake tumor made out of water, sludge, and I guess sadness. Doctors miss this constantly because they see a huge leg and lazily think, it's just fat, lol. Wrong. This is a catastrophic failure of your body's drainage system. Imagine all of the storm drains in your city clogging all at once and the streets are just flooding. That's your lymphatic system. Fluid gets trapped with nowhere to go, triggering swelling and scarring until the tissue literally turns rock hard. Your leg ends up with the texture of a basketball that's been left outside for 5 winters. These masses show up as gigantic hanging tissue, usually on the inner thigh, sometimes weighing as much as a microwave, sometimes more. Your skin gets this thick, dimpled texture that looks like an orange peel, except the orange is the size of a beanbag. These massive growths physically block your legs from closing, forcing you into an extremely wide stance like you're permanently doing a sumo wrestler cosplay. At the same time, the abdominal apron hits grade 4. It hangs to mid-thigh or lower. Imagine strapping around a 50-pound bag of wet cement to your belt and trying to live your life. Go grocery shopping, do laundry, or play with kids. Good luck. It pulls your lower spine into agony, drags your skin until it tears. The weight so extreme that people sometimes have to physically lift this mass with their hands or strap it to their bodies just so they can stand up. It becomes a separate entity that you have to manage, like a roommate who never pays rent but takes up all the space and also smells like people at Comic Cons. Ugh. Walking becomes almost impossible. You need support just to go to the bathroom. In your lungs, they said, I quit, and walked out mid-shift. All that weight that your chest has pulls the pressure from your abdomen and makes your lungs stiff like Play-Doh. The effort required just to breathe goes through the roof. Sitting on the couch scrolling TikTok, your respiratory muscles are running a marathon. You take rapid, shallow breaths like a dog on a hot day. The lower parts of your lungs actually collapse under the weight. Doctors call it atelectasis because medical terminology loves to make everything sound like a Harry Potter spell. But really, it just means that your lungs are giving up because you can't generate enough force to keep the air sacs open against the crushing weight pressing down from above. Everything's just maxed out and still failing. The psychological toll is brutal too. You used to be a person who walked places. Now you're just basically furniture that occasionally moves. People stare, kids point. You see the disgust in their eyes. They don't want to sit next to you in class or on public transport. You're trapped in a body that's become a spectator sport for strangers. Stage 5, terminal phase. Super obesity, which sounds like a bad sequel title where they just added super again because they ran out of ideas. Super duper could have been nice. But reality's way darker than that. The mechanical and physiological stress becomes incompatible with independent life. Your biology stops struggling and just gives up. You can't even laugh when someone makes a yo mama joke about you. The main villain here is malignant obesity hypoventilation syndrome. Your body stops compensating and just starts hard failing. This goes way beyond sleep apnea. The breathing mechanics are so wrecked that your respiratory muscles can't even lift your ribcage to exhale properly. You can't get the air out. Carbon dioxide builds up in your blood, medically called hypercapnia, basically turning your blood into carbonated soda. Your brain gets foggy, you get confused, and you fall asleep randomly because your brain is literally drowning in its own waste products. You don't know if you will wake up. The body panics and constricts lung arteries to redirect blood, but this backfires catastrophically like every decision ever made in a horror movie. It causes massive pressure buildup in the pulmonary system that eventually destroys the right side of your heart. At this point, regular room air isn't enough to survive. You need a pressurized machine just to force your lungs open against the crushing weight of your own chest. You're basically on life support while sitting in a chair scrolling through Instagram. Meanwhile, the abdominal apron hits grade 5, Paniculus morbidus. Even the Latin name is telling you you're screwed. It extends to or below your knees. And here's a brutal reality check. Blood vessels have a maximum range, like Wi-Fi signal. In grade 5, they literally cannot travel that distance through all that fat to reach the skin at the bottom. The tissue at the bottom starves, becomes oxygen deprived, turns gray and dies. It rots from the inside, becoming a source of infection. You're basically composting while alive. The smell is unspeakable. Biomechanically, this mass acts like an anchor, physically preventing your knees from extending. You can't straighten your legs, and standing literally becomes impossible. And then the skeleton gives up. It literally cannot support the mass against gravity anymore. Your bones snap simply because you stood up. Your femur, one of the strongest bones of the human body, fractures under your own weight. You are too heavy to be yourself. The combination of respiratory failure, rotting tissue, and skeletal collapse makes you bedbound. And once you can't move, the trap closes. Blood clots form. Pressure ulcers eat through skin to bone insanely fast because fat tissue has terrible blood flow. Your body becomes a prison you can't escape. There is no parole board. No good behavior discounts. It's game over. Anyways, it's 2 a.m. and I've been thinking about obese people walking for way too long. My advice? Go for a walk tomorrow and appreciate that your joints actually work. Give your knees a little thank you. Pet them. Tell them you love them. They're doing their best out there. And maybe take the stairs once in a while. We want you to get laid. Drop a like if you made it this far without Googling, am I obese? And hey, if this video made you uncomfortable, good. Sometimes that is the only thing that saves you. Ciao, ciao. Subscribe now.